Welcome everybody to our second episode of Secular Sunday Service, although today is Monday, but that's okay. Doesn't matter what day of the week it is. And it's not like any of us really know what day of the week it is anymore because, pandemic and everything. So welcome to my guests, everyone. How about we go around the room and just tell everybody who you are and what you do. Jake, let's start with you.
Hi, I'm Actual Jake. Some of you may recall me as Jake from the Bible Reloaded back in the day. We are now Hannah and Jake. I mostly exist on Twitch under Actual Jake, where we do a lot of lefty politics. We do a lot of debate. We do a lot of debunking. It's just live now, and then it's a lot of fun. So it's a lot of the good stuff. Still doing it.
Cool. Chris, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good. I'm Chris Shelton. I'm a YouTuber, podcaster, author, and my main point of interest for most people is I'm a former long-term Scientologist / cult member, and I've done a lot of work over the years to expose and talk about cultic abuses and how cults work and how that leads into extremist mindsets and stuff like that. And I've been on YouTube here and for 6-7 years now. So that's me.
Oh, I didn't know it was that long. Awesome. Hemant?
Sure. My name is Hemant Mehta. I write at friendlyatheist.com. If you're on YouTube, you can search Friendly Atheist and you'll find my channel. I've been writing, doing videos, podcasts, all sorts of things for way too long now, and I should really stop.
No, because I literally just found you and I love the content. So please
Thanks.
don't go.
Yeah, I used to do YouTube at a channel called The Atheist Voice. Now I'm trying to do it on my own, which requires editing my own stuff, which is fun to learn when you're in your late 30s. So yeah, good times.
Yeah, I know. That's why I don't really edit my videos. So I get it. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. This is your first time on my channel.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks.
John, Dark Matter.
Yeah. Well, I've been here before, but in case anyone doesn't know, I've been doing YouTube for about 12 years, and I have a fairly good-sized channel. I do animations mostly, and regarding the religion debate, from an atheist point of view. But sometimes I touch on politics as well, and I'm very disappointed that only Momma Atheist is the only one here who is wearing the appropriate attire.
But, and you can't really see it up there, underneath the GE sticker is a Jake sticker.
There we go.
I can't see it, so it's too far. I've been collecting things, but yes, I love my Dark Matter church. So.
That's awesome.
We have a really kind of depressing topic to talk about, but there is a lot to talk about today. So I thought we would discuss Christianity and politics, and we all just happen to be Americans, which is very rare for a stream. There's so many people from all over the world in our community, but it's okay. And if anybody has any questions at all, please tag MathPig in the chat. So in terms of is one of the biggest questions, I guess, is America a Christian nation? How do you guys respond to that?
Who wants to start?
Well,
Yes,
it is, but it shouldn't be.
Yeah, I think obviously a large group of people are Christian, and a lot of the people that were around during its founding, had a lot to do with Christianity. There's lots of deism mixed in and stuff like that. But I think when we say Christian nation, we mean it's very influenced by Christianity. And I think when Christians say it's a Christian nation, they think it's sort of divinely written as a Christian nation. The founding fathers believed in Jesus. Did they though? Some of them did.
Right.
There were actually quite a few non-secular people that were founding fathers, but the Constitution does not mention God, actually. But every state constitution in the country either mentions God itself or the divine. So.
Right.
Well, if you're going to... Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
Oh, I was just going to say it's rife through civic service, through civil services, you know, in God we trust, that sort of thing. It's on our money now. It has been for decades. And unfortunately, I think the reason why we're most bothered by it, at least for me, is because so many legislators are so blatantly, openly, biasedly Christian in their legislation, in the way they go about doing their job. And that's I think what scares me.
Here's what I would get to that. You're saying it's a Christian, whoever says it, if it's a Christian nation because we're a majority Christian country, that's quickly changing. So if you want to go by that definition, we're not going to be a Christian nation for that much longer. But if they're referring to the nation's founding, well, guess what? That's still wrong, because a lot of those people a lot of them weren't Christian. And the ones who were wouldn't be recognized by like white evangelicals today as Christians, like not the right kind. You know what I mean? Like there's a reason the Constitution is a secular document other than like the date or whatever it was. Like so I think it's just marketing more than anything else. People want to say it's a Christian nation because that gives them cover to do things that appeal to evangelical conservative Christians. So the things Chris was mentioning, where it's like under God and the pledge, in God we trust on the money and stuff, when you promote this idea that we are a Christian nation, then that's kind of your cover to do that sort of thing, which then gives you more reason to say, see, we're a Christian nation, we just did that thing. It's I don't the people who say it's a Christian nation always do something shady. That's the thing to keep in mind. Figure out what they're trying to do with that. They're not saying it's a Christian nation, so we should help the poor.
Yeah. There's a lot of loaded language in the discussion, right? And bringing this up right away was correct, because it isn't clear what you mean or what people mean in general when they say Christian nation. And I think this is an important point to head off with.
I mean, you have actual Muslim countries that, you know, are based in Sharia law and stuff like that. That is nothing like what we have today. John, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. It seems a way to exclude other people. You know, it seems like whenever they're, imposing this idea that we're a Christian nation, it's always to exclude, any other, religions or non-religion. It's like preferential treatment. They're trying to establish this precedent of preferential treatment, and that's directly against what this country was founded on. Even if Christians had, influence on the forming of this country, they were very explicit about wanting that separation to be there, because not only did they not want their religion affecting the government, but they also didn't want the government affecting the religion either.
Right.
And that's some short-sightedness that they're not thinking about these days, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in terms of Chris, you mentioned the whole like how there's in God we trust on money and stuff like that. That's a relatively new thing, though. That has to do with what
70 years ago. I mean, it's 65 years ago. So
compared to the age of our country, okay.
It's a good quarter to a third of the country. Yeah.
Yeah, and in most people's living memory, this is what they have always seen their whole life, and I think that's why it's relevant. Historically speaking, I mean, this has all been thoroughly debunked as to whether we're founded as a Christian nation. I mean, Andrew Seidel did a great book on it, but yet, when it comes to hearts and minds, that's what I'm speaking to when I say, Christian nation, because we got a whole bunch of people in this country who would love to see a national church of Christ or national Christian church or something like that. And I'm speaking mostly about evangelicals at that point.
Now, Jake, you studied history. Can you just go over really quickly of why we shifted over toward the whole "In God We Trust" thing, the history behind that?
Well, Yeah, I was just actually about to talk about that. Most of it was a response to communism. Actually, it was politically motivated, because the USSR and other proto-communist countries, basically like, oh, they're godless, and you see they're anti-capitalist. It was a way to couple your religious belief on the right. Which obviously was incredibly popular back in the day, anyways, spanning either side of the aisle. And it was a way to push a political narrative while reinforcing your religious belief. It's not dissimilar to how we responded during 9/11 with all the toxic, like, anti-Muslim stuff, where we're like, we're very Christian and stuff like that. But yeah, it largely had to do with more communism than religious belief at all, which is very strange. Yeah. And it pervades today. Like, calling someone a socialist politically is, even if they're not a socialist, Barack Obama is a great example of this, where, the guy's obviously a capitalist, and he's a brown guy, and so he's a socialist. Like, he has a funny sounding name, so that means, yeah.
In terms, okay, so we are clearly becoming a more secular country. Not only the population as a whole, but especially as, the younger generations are coming of voting age and whatnot. People are pulling away from God. They're definitely pulling away from organized religion. There are more people that are just, calling themselves, saying they have faith, as opposed to putting a actual label on it. However, the way that we're represented in our government is completely off balance, and that's one of the reasons that I wanted to have this discussion. I have some facts that I looked up really quick. 88% of Congress identifies as Christian. Only 17% of the American public is evangelical, yet nearly 30% of the electorate is covered by are evangelicals. Let's see. There have been actually 2 U.S. presidents that didn't identify to a specific religious affiliation, and that was Jefferson and Lincoln. But the rest have all been mostly Presbyterian or Episcopalian. And while only half of Americans believe that there should be religious laws, like we should put the Bible into our laws, again, more than 80% of our Congress is, identifies as Christian, and extremely so. So how do we find a balance here? How do we fight that?
Let me jump in really quick. So first of all, when you mention those disparities, like there are more evangelicals in Congress than when it comes to the population at large, we're the biggest discrepancy. We're like 20 to 30 to 40, depending on which survey you're looking at, % of the population when it comes to people who are not affiliated with any organized religion. And yet, at the moment, there's only one openly humanist member of Congress and a handful of people who are like not affiliated or who didn't want to answer the question. I don't count them. There's only one who's unaffiliated, but she doesn't talk about it. So we're the ones who are undercounted in Congress. But let me give you some reason for optimism. I've been keeping track of all the openly non-religious candidates running for office at the state level or federal level. There are more openly non-religious candidates who won their primaries or ran unopposed. There are more people on the ballot this time around, coming up this November, than I've ever seen in the past decade, where you could actually add enough members to keep track of this stuff. There are more than 100 people on the ballot, statewide or higher. Granted, very few running for Congress, 2 maybe who are atheists, but state level, huge, tons of them. And many of them are incumbents. They've already proven they can do stuff. And of course, incumbency is the best thing to have on your resume. But there are a hell of a lot of people running for office, even in red states, who are not afraid of calling themselves atheist or agnostic or some euphemism for it. That, to me, is a big deal, because we're getting to the point where no one cares. People care more about what party you're affiliated with than what your religious label is. Even there are 0 Republicans on my list, but if you are a Republican who said you were non-religious in a lot of parts of the country, I think your atheism would probably get a pass because more people are more interested in what your party affiliation is. That is a stronger indicator of what your values are. So, like, in that sense, I think there is room for optimism and room for us to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. To go, I believe that because of the fact that the younger generation is getting older and it's more accepting, I think that might be opening it up. But at the same time, according to Pew Research, 20% of Americans believe that a president must have strong religious values, and 32% think it's somewhat important for a president to have religious values.
It's funny. I bet all 20% voted for Donald Trump.
Oh, absolutely.
Which doesn't make any sense. But.
No, I don't get that either. But
well, it's the difference between perception and reality.
I mean, the perception was he held up a Bible one time, and it's like,
you didn't hold it up right. That was fucking weird.
Corinthians.
Yeah,
I've always thought of it as kind of like a litmus test for gullibility. You know what I mean?
Which thing, Trump or the Bible, or which?
The religious portion of the electorate, like that's. I think that there's a lot of politicians who aren't, very devout believers, like your Trumps.
Yeah.
But they know what to do. They know how to talk about it. Yeah. They know how to play it up, who to pander to, and I think that the religion itself provides a kind of litmus test for gullibility. Like, I just think that maybe I'm wrong, but I get the impression that it's easier to make that sale to that specific demographic.
I think you're probably right about that. Do any of you get mad when people call Trump an atheist?
I believe that he probably is, but it is kind of offensive because I don't want him to be anything that I am.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I don't know that he's actively. I think he's such a narcissist that I don't think it comes up.
That's exactly.
You know what I mean?
That's exactly where I've landed on it, because I think you're right. He's pandering. Yeah. So he says he's Christian or whatever, and I don't think anyone seriously believes that. But I think to assume then that he's an atheist is unfair, because I feel like that's like saying a baby is an atheist. Like, okay, they don't actively believe. But that's because they haven't thought about it. So it means nothing to call a baby an atheist, and it means nothing to call Trump an atheist because he's never spent time asking himself, I wonder what's out there. He's never done that.
I can't believe that's ever happened.
It would not surprise me if he is an atheist, but even if he is, that has absolutely zero bearing on any respect I have for him. I would still vote for a Christian over Trump.
For sure.
Even if he were a confirmed atheist.
Yeah.
Somebody's commenting here, so I was exactly going to say, which is Trump's God is Trump.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
And so
he's a monotheist.
It's the idea of him having spiritual belief or supernatural belief is so divorced from what he's all about.
Yeah.
And it's almost non sequitur to talk about his religion. You're almost like, what do you mean his religion?
Yeah.
What?
I really like imagining Donald Trump hotboxing his limousine with his bros. I don't even know who that is, and just being like really high and being like, "Hey man, what do you think the universe is like?" That doesn't even seem like a reality.
That never happened. Yeah.
Also, Hemant, I would say that you were very insulting towards babies a little while ago.
I'm sorry.
And I just think
I'm not a fan.
I think Trump. I think the best conversation, or the most interested conversation you would have with Trump about religion, is his admiration of how prosperity gospel suckers the roots, right?
Yeah.
How much money they are making hand over fist and how they go about doing it. I think he'd be interested in that part of the conversation.
If he loses, I think he would stand to gain more financially, not from like starting his own Rush Limbaugh-esque radio station or TV channel or whatever. I think it's by going down the route of the prosperity gospel, because he has that base. He could sell that stuff, and they would buy it from him.
That's close.
And a major.
Well,
I was going to say a major benefit of that is the no taxes.
Yeah. Oh my God.
True.
Like,
yeah, he seems to be doing that already, but yeah.
And now, I think that's exactly right.
Yeah.
You mentioned his dude bros, Jake. I actually learned today that his choice for VP was Chris Christie because he likes to pal around with him. So now I just imagine that, like, of course, after he told him he was a fat fuck and everything, but whatever.
Yeah.
But how do we? Sorry.
I was just trying to remember why Chris Christie was didn't he did some sort of like bridge thing, right? And then he was like, and then they're like, no, you can't be the vice president.
His popularity, Chris Christie's popularity had tanked by the time Trump had to make his decisions about VP. So whatever he wanted to do with Chris Christie, like, it wasn't going to help him.
I'm kind of bummed. Think of the memes. We could have had a bright spot for 4 years as Chris Christie bumbling around the White House.
That's right.
The sad thing is he would probably enjoy the media. Like, Mike Pence basically avoids it, whereas Chris Christie runs into that. He likes that thing.
Women are allowed in the media, and Mike is like...
Yeah, that's true. Pence is aware he's awkward as fuck, but actually it was the family, that organization, that I guess we can talk about in a second, but that kind of guided Pence his way and pretty much said, this is who you need to pick. And it was a good decision because the evangelical support that Trump got was a big reason that he was elected.
Right.
Yeah. Pandering to the actually created religious right, in the 80s, right? Mm-hmm. That's been a staple of the GOP ever since then.
And he's counting on it. And by the way, like, the last time I saw a poll from maybe a month ago or so, I know that's like a year ago, but like the 81% of white evangelical voters voted for him in 2016. It's pretty much the same right now for that group again. So the question is, like, I don't know that it's going to get higher. I don't think the Supreme Court nominee earns him more votes because I think he's maxed out. He has his base. He's not growing moderates.
Yeah,
no one's paying attention to the debate tomorrow. Like, all right, who is this guy? And so I think if he loses like a small fraction of those white evangelical voters who might get upset about some of the stuff that's happening, like, you go from 81% to like 75, he's dead in politically speaking. Like, he can't afford to lose any of them because that's all he's got. Everyone else sees through him. Those people are gullible as hell. They fall for his stuff, or they'll, like someone said, transactional. They'll do whatever they can to get the judges they want. But like, I think if you see a little drop in evangelical Christians who back away from him, or at least sit out the election, they might not vote for Biden, but they might say too much. I'm not going to vote this time around. Like, he has nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that the GOP recognizes the religious limitation, that they are gradually declining, and so it's kind of like a political dead end?
I think they know it with evangelicals. I think they know it with young voters, that they're losing those too. I think they definitely know they could be losing Latino voters. And I mean, yes, I think they're all aware of that. After Mitt Romney lost in 2012, they put out a huge report saying, here's who we're losing. We need to get these groups back. Then Trump comes along, blows all that up and whatever. They know it. And I mean, whatever, they dug their own grave. So I don't feel particularly bad for them. But I think if your question is like, are they even aware of how bad their future seems to be? Like, I think they're all aware of it.
Well, and that's why it seems like the strategy, once Trump became the thing, they went hard voter suppression, voter suppression, because you have to, if you're going to win, you have to limit the people that don't like you from being able to vote now. So that's been like their platform for the last almost 6 years since he started running almost. So
strategy is stop you from voting or get you so cynical and disillusioned about voting that you just give up on it altogether. And if you put enough obstacles in people's way, maybe they're not going to do it.
Right, which
And
I think part of that was part of the COVID response was kind of that. Like they thought, like, well, if we can keep this going for a little while, because it doesn't seem like particularly proactive, right?
You're suggesting they strategically like had a maybe this isn't the worst thing.
Right.
As opposed to the other option, which is they're just too dumb to be able to deal with it.
Well, I think Donald Trump's not the mastermind behind that. I think he's too dumb to understand, and I think he thinks that like, well, I did my best. But I think he's got a cabal of people around that are actually quite smart fascists or fascist adjacent that would be like, wait a second, like Steve Bannon is he's not in the cabinet anymore, but he's still like sort of connected here. Yeah. I guarantee that someone in there, Stephen Miller maybe, is like, it's not so bad if we let some of the poor areas, get really hardly affected, and that's who gets hit.
But it would be hilarious if Trump's lashing out against like mail-in voting and telling people they shouldn't do early voting, if that comes back to bite him in the ass because he loses those votes, how sweet would that be?
Well, there's already been a record number. We broke every record for early voting already. Yeah. So
I'm hopeful.
He wouldn't be doing that if he were confident in any way that he was going to win.
Oh yeah, if he thought he was going to win, he'd be telling everyone to vote because build up my numbers. He knows he doesn't have it, so he's just trying to depress the other votes. There was a story that came out today from a British news station that literally showed their 2016 like voter information, which everyone has, that says like on this block in this district, we know what these voters are, who they voted for in the past. We know all that. They literally
the Cambridge Analytica one?
Yes, and they found that the Trump campaign's goal was saying this group of people, we want to deter them from voting. Let's stop them from voting. And oh, by the way, they're all black and in very democratic areas. If you can depress the votes in those areas and make those people see Facebook ads that get them thinking, you know what, maybe I want to vote for him or not vote at all. And it worked clearly in those parts.
Well, this has been strategy from the GOP and in some areas the DNC, but we won't get into that right now. For years, Cambridge Analytica is just the latest cherry on top in terms of efficiency and ability to influence the vote or deter people from voting. I mean, this goes all the way back to, press gangs and stuff. So you've got a long, rich history and tradition of trying to control the vote when you don't have the popular vote, and this is rife.
Oh yeah.
I mean, rife. Texas, Florida, Jesus, the voter, almost every single voter ID law on the books is a dishonest, corrupt effort to franchise voters.
And a lot of it, from the civil rights era, you still have stuff that's a holdover. I mean, you have terrible. I mean, you can't do as much of it out and about. I mean, although they are getting a little bit bolder, the racists. But they used to actually like lynch people and keep them from voting, and now they're just out there with threats of violence and AR-15s, which is not too dissimilar, but they're not quite the same yet. But I mean, like we have that behavior like rising back up. It's really not great.
They were blocking the door of an early voting place with all their signs and stuff. They had to be chased out of there.
Policing the polls to make sure everything was on the up and up, right?
Oh, policing the polls is the thing. People should read "Fire and a Canebrake" by Laura Wexler. It's a really it's a great book, but it's a terrible story about voter suppression in Georgia and the killings of several black people and kind of just it's like a microcosm of the broader. Like the way that you can just literally scare people away. This was in like an 80% black town, and the black vote was almost null because of their hardcore suppression. So this happens all over the place, and it's redlining and gerrymandering and making sure that polling places are limited and stuff. But luckily, there's some people like LeBron James, for instance, is doing a lot of good work in his community in the swing state in Ohio, trying to make sure that that there's more polling places. All NBA stadiums, for the record, are going to be able to be
They're trying to,
but they pledged to try to do it. So
good.
Wasn't there a law up until recently that I think they let expire that kept this whole it kept them from being able to do this kind of poll intimidation thing? Am I wrong about that?
I don't know about a federal law.
Okay.
I don't know about that.
I don't know. I mean, every state's got their own thing. Every city's got their own thing on voter laws and stuff. So it's a little hard to tell in terms of blanket policies around the country.
There's just this huge imbalance of power in terms of the fact that not just Christians, but the white Christians specifically in the Midwest seem to hold a lot, because of the electoral college especially, they seem to hold a lot more power. I mean, something in the last 20 years, or 30 years, I think, only one of the Republican presidents that were elected did so with the popular vote, I think.
Right.
So
Reagan, was it?
George W. Bush in 2004 won the popular vote too, but other than that, that's been it.
And Reaganomics is baked into religion with the whole like oh, we got to do charitable work. Like Methodists love that kind of stuff, and Catholics like this. Like so like again, their economic policies that don't work are really exacerbated by the way that they push the religious belief too, because you can make someone believe that charity works if they're religious. That's a huge part of platforms for the right.
But you have the majority of the country, the people, honestly, Democrats, but everything pretty much is not being represented properly because of this imbalance of power. Not only that, but once they have this power, they do shit like this with the gerrymandering and stuff,
right,
so that they make sure they can hold on to that power. If you have to cheat to be elected, you're fucking wrong.
And this is the argument that I've tried to make for the both sides crowd, which is that one side is trying to suppress the votes. One side is trying to gerrymander. They do it whenever they get the chance.
Yeah.
Democrats are not perfect. Believe me, I wish they were in office so I could criticize the hell out of them. But they are fighting to make sure more people can vote and to have a neutral group, a neutral committee do all the redistricting stuff. They're very much on the side of let's play a fair game. And Republicans are like, no, we're going to cheat and win. That's why, expanding the courts. That's not a power grab. That's undoing Republican damage in a way they would totally do if they thought they could get away with it. And I don't know. At this point, it's I don't see it as Democrats doing some sort of power grab. It's no, you got to balance. You got to counterbalance. You got to counterpunch. Otherwise, they're just going to keep doing this every time. You can't just say, let's bring stuff back to normal. You got to go further. Make California 90 states, all with 2 senators. Then we'll talk.
It might work. Actually, I watched your video about when you talked about having to expand the court.
Yeah.
It looks like that's going to happen, but does anybody worry that it's never going to stop? That the next, if Biden goes in and the court is expanded, and then after Biden, a GOP or someone from the GOP is let in, are they going to expand it more? Are they going to keep the majority?
What you could do, which is totally not going to happen because I don't think Democrats have this in them. Let's say you put 2 other justices, you expand the court to 11. You fill them with 2 liberal black women, because we haven't seen that on the court. That would be amazing. And then what you do, by the way, don't stop at 2, go 7. Then we'll talk. But then you could pass a law that says, look, from this point on, we're going to either pass a constitutional amendment or whatever. Harder to do, I know. But you could say from this point on, every president gets 1 appointment every 2 years or something, and that person serves 18 years in the Supreme Court. And this is it doesn't matter who's in office. You could pass a law that says regardless of who's in office, these are the rules we're going to play by, and just take it off the table. Or at least come up with a set of ground rules that everyone has to live by that can't change just because Republicans are in Congress or something.
I don't hate that. I also was considering term limits that would start the following year after you get to 11, where you go, okay, next year, whoever the oldest member of the court is, who I believe is a lefty, you have
to, like the Pope, you're like a bishop.
Yeah, you're done, right? And then the maximum you can do is 22 years or something, I guess. So
I'm shocked. I mean, Ruth Bader Ginsburg aside, that was kind of expected, but also unexpected.
Right.
I am shocked Clarence Thomas didn't leave right now. Because I've seen people attacking Ruth Bader Ginsburg for not stepping down when Barack Obama had a Senate majority and all that. But Clarence Thomas had a Republican Senate and didn't step down. He's doing the exact thing people are criticizing Ruth Bader Ginsburg for. And like, the thing I'm afraid of is if Joe Biden wins, Clarence Thomas is going to be on like November 4th saying, I'm retiring. And they will jam through his replacement in like a week before the inauguration.
Maybe that'll happen, but
I think, Jake, you could probably speak to this better. There's supposed to be, when they originally wrote the Constitution, that it's supposed to be reviewed every like 10 or 20 years in order to see what needs to be fixed and changed. Wouldn't that be a good idea say, hey, we'll add people now, but for this amount of every so many years or whatever, then we'll talk about what might need to be changed or whatever, but keep it a set amount of time so that people can't jump in, a next president can't jump in and just whatever they wish.
Well, I like Hemant's idea of like limiting how many appointments you can make as a president. I like that. I think that's
so messed up. Jimmy Carter got none and Trump gets friggin' 3.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. Like I think it's and maybe mandatory 1. Maybe 1 has to be moved out, and that's fine. I'm fine if like sometimes we're the minority, and that's okay. Like our political beliefs, maybe we're the minority, and I'm okay. Although this conservatism is just wacky, I'm okay with someone being like, you know what? I think we need a more center left justice. I'll deal with that. I would argue against it, but I mean, I know that I'm not everybody, and I'm fine with this. It's a very slow and deliberate political process on purpose. It's intentionally designed to take a long time, which is not good for people that have phones and can get things immediately. I can DoorDash something immediately and I have immediate like satisfaction all the time. So for us, everything feels so much slower politically relative to everything else we experience. So it's a little bit of that coupled with social media. But I mean, like this kind of, I don't even want to call it conservatism. It's just madness. Well, I don't know. It's fascism.
Power grab. It's a power grab by people who. The weird thing is, it's a power grab by people who don't want political power. They just want to destroy the government. Like they don't even get anything. It's not like Mitch McConnell is. Yeah, like I don't understand their end game. They don't have one. I mean, everything I've seen about Mitch McConnell, it's like there is no right-wing government he's trying to form. He just wants to do jack. He just wants to put obstacles in the way and accumulate power, but to what end? No end. Just more power.
Except for the military, though, which is scary. Because get rid of everything else, but make the military stronger, make the police stronger. I mean, what does that sound like?
But again, to what end? Like, let's say he does that. Let's say that's his end goal. Like, I couldn't even tell you what exactly does he want to do with the military? Because it's not like he's out there saying we need to attack the following countries, we need to attack our own people in certain areas. Like,
I guess I'm less worried about the Turtles idea, like end game, and more concerned about someone like Stephen Miller's end game.
Right.
Using
Mitch McConnell. He has his point of view, which is
that guy's basically Goebbels. It's so weird.
Oh yeah,
he's but like you can't do that with Mitch McConnell because Mitch McConnell has no ideas.
Exactly. But so I guess it's just like there's so many fools, like old fools in the Republican Party that I feel like a lot of alt-right people are using right now. Like they don't necessarily have elected positions, but have like cabinet positions that seem to be like, well, what if you did this? Nudge, nudge. And Mitch McConnell's like, I don't know. And he sort of pops out of his shell and goes, okay, let's fuck that up. And then he presses the fuck up button. And then we have militarized police stomping on people's First Amendment right. Like, okay, I guess that's what happens now. And then Donald Trump's so dumb he doesn't understand that like. He thinks that is law and order. He's like, oh, I'm the law and order guy. I'm in charge. And I bet the fucking law and order like dong plays in his head every time he's.
Oh yeah. Well, you talk about Mitch McConnell not having any goals. Neither does Trump. Trump clearly he's making his money, but does he even really want to be president?
No.
For the first time,
the report didn't seem like he did at all.
No,
he didn't. I think. It was a marketing stunt. It was a way to. The Apprentice was over. He needed
Trump
to get
was happening.
Yeah, he wanted to raise his profile. He figured he could lose and then shit on Hillary Clinton for the next 4 years, and he would be like a hero to conservatives. And then he stupidly won, and that ruined his plan.
No, but there was, for the first time ever, there was no actual laid out platform at the Republican National Convention this year. There was no, we're going to do this and this and this. They literally just changed the date on the platform from the one in 2016, and that was it.
And that was it. And they said, we'll just do whatever he wants. Yep.
Rebuild the military, build the wall.
Rebuild the when was it not built?
The best part about it is that whole platform is like, the current president's awful, and they're like, "Yep, just
right." And I love the this is what it'll be like under Joe Biden. It's just the desolation of his current presidency, and it's like, how do you reconcile the burning and the riots?
Yeah.
Like
Joe Biden's future looks like Donald Trump's present.
And then that picture of Donald Trump amongst the rubble, like that was such a good fucking picture. Love it.
Oh,
like, why though? He had, like you said, he has no platform. He clearly has nothing that he wants to do. But
at this point, if he's not president, so the stuff that just came out yesterday about his taxes and how much he owes that he hasn't paid and stuff, because he's president, they really can't go after him. But the second he's a normal citizen again, holy shit, he's going to face so many lawsuits.
Southern District in New York is waiting.
Oh my God.
Sitting there waiting.
His life is over if his presidency ends. And like someone, I forgot who said this, but like dictators or wannabe dictators, they don't just not be dictator anymore. Yeah. They're either like defeated in a coup or they get killed or whatever it is. Like, he's not going to go away quietly. He needs to be president or all this shit's going to hit the fan. That's why, part of why he's going through as much as he is, trying to downplay the voting, putting all the obstacles in its path. Like, it's not, to answer your question, it's not that he has some grand idea of what he wants to do. He just doesn't want to not be president now, because that would be bad for his brand.
Yeah, and he's also making a shit ton of money at his golf courses and hotels and stuff by being president. Yeah, so here's a question though. Like, I mean, while I'm not a fan of the GOP, Republicans don't really align with any of my values. I don't begrudge them. I look at them each as individuals, so they can't all be horrible and stupid people. Why do they keep following him? Why do they keep agreeing to everything he says?
I know this answer. It's scary. The answer is you watch sports? Does anyone watch sports? And especially East Coast sports like Boston. If your team wins, it's a victory for you, and it changes your personality, and you are a winner and stuff like that. I know so many people that vote for Donald Trump and have just voted red their whole life, that like their big thing is a combination of, it's like 80% I want to win. I just want to win. I don't want to vote for someone who loses, which, like, hey, if you vote and everyone else does too, you also win. But the other thing is fuck you. Like, it's quite literally, I know it makes you mad, and so I want to do it. I have talked to so many Trump voters, like through my chat, through actual debate, multiple times. Almost overwhelmingly, it's because it triggers the libs, and it's like, what is that for? Who's that help?
Hi there.
Hey, we got fans over here.
Hi.
I can't hear them.
Oh,
they're around.
Headphones in. So good I can swear.
I know.
Because no, I don't understand why, but that doesn't make sense. It's more of a psychology thing, and there's that constant owning the libs. It's like a sport of their own, a game to them now, to own the libs. It doesn't matter what our positions are or what their positions are anymore. It really is. That is a good explanation. Do you guys tend to do the same thing, though? Did you vote blue down the line, or do you take each candidate into consideration? Chris, how about you?
I take every single thing individually. I'm not a straight party ticket person. I'm actually registered independent now. because I got kind of sick of both sides and the nonsense going on with the propaganda and stuff. But I'm obviously left leaning.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'm an independent as well, and I take my sample ballot home and Google every name on it. I research every name on it. So I don't just rely on the letter after the name. But I will say that if the Dems just sweep the elections, I will be very much looking forward to the reaction.
Yeah.
After these last 4 years, to have that, to see them get a taste of their own medicine, all the bravado, all the Trump 2020, it's going to be a landslide, all the the constant just callousness, and to see it all crumble like a house of cards.
Yeah,
I'll be there for that.
I'm a registered independent as well. Scared?
Yeah, well, considering the amount of fear mongering that they're all doing, like I take care of my parents, so they have Fox. They are very right, and they have Fox News going all the time. So I oftentimes hear what they're saying on Fox, and pretty much everything Trump says, they completely agree with. And I heard them today talking about how that they're saying that the tax thing was fake because he said it was fake news, but also the stuff with the mail-in ballots, they will parrot everything he says. So, because there is so much fear building up, and then there's like the Q conspiracy too, where a lot of them seem to think that the Dems are evil and eating babies and raping children or some shit. Does anybody worry that there will be violence if they lose?
This is standard. This is super standard. Fear-based politics has been a right-wing thing for years, forever. Like, I mean, I'm trying to think of a time when it wasn't fear-based politics in American history, and I don't think it exists. I mean, you have, just start in the 1900s. You have, oh, look, we got the Germans. Oh, look, we got the Japanese. Oh, look, we got the Nazis. Oh, look, we got communists. Oh, look, we got Vietnam now, which is more communism, and Korea, communism. Like, China is now a big thing. Mexicans have been a big thing. Just illegal immigrants and gangs and stuff. Like, the drug war is a great example. You should be scared of your black neighbor because they live in the projects, they're poor, and that's a bad thing. Like, literally criminalizing poverty. This has been a thing forever. It's just, we live in the age of information now, where that stuff goes like really fast, and people like your parents are older and don't know how to parse that information. And we people that are younger, like I'm in my early 30s. People my age we just kind of learned how to do it on the fly because we like lived through AOL and then through all of this. But like the younger generation, it's baked into their life. They're like, oh yeah, that's stupid. This is real. This is dumb. This is real. Like, so they can kind of parse that a lot better. Although I think a lot of us have now gotten to the point where at post 2016, basically everyone's mask came off and you just went, wow, look at this grift. Look at this just propaganda. This nothing inside of it. There's no meat inside your ideology. It's just pulp. And once those people basically got exposed, a lot of people that, like in my fan base, and I'm a OG atheist YouTube, like Dark Matter here. Like, we have a lot of peers that we're very disappointed in. I guarantee it. A lot of our fan bases are ex-fans of those people at this point, and they often say, and I know Dark Matter knows this for sure, it's always, thank you so much for not being one of the few atheist YouTubers that didn't do this, that didn't go down the rabbit hole, that stayed like reasonable and did this and that. And
did you guys listen to those like rabbit hole podcasts from the New York Times where they literally aired clips from some of those atheists? And it's like, oh no.
Like Sargon of Akkad and stuff.
Yeah. Anyway, to answer your thing, like the question about the violence thing, it might happen. The violence thing, I'm not actually worried about that. The fear mongering is going to happen, like Jake is saying, no matter what goes on. Like, again, I know it's almost like a joke at this point, but if you look at what conservatives were mad about when Obama was in office, it's always the dumbest things. They'll always find stuff to complain about. Like, but I would much rather have like someone sane in power, and they will spend the next 4 years or longer telling you the sky is falling, everything is horrible. But like normal, rational people will be able to discern, like, okay, things are better in this case. And again, they will even Democrats will criticize the hell out of other Democrats. That's fine. That's good.
I can't wait to get to that point.
I know. I can't wait to get to it either. But it's like they will go crazy about everything. So to your parents' perspective, as long as that Fox News bubble is there, as long as that stuff is there, they'll always find stuff to complain about. So the fact that, you know what, if Trump loses, yeah, there will be a bunch of old people and a bunch of crazy, crazy conservatives who are like, it was a rigged election. They took this thing from us. And they will do that in a smaller and smaller bubble, and they will just keep doing that. But that's what we need. We need them to be in a bubble where they can't hurt other people. Like, just go complain about it in your little chambers. Go away from power.
I think that
this is the same conversations these guys were having 4 years ago about it.
I believe it. Yeah.
I mean, I think a more productive conversation that we could be having about this particular part of the election cycle is, if we win, how do we rebuild some of those bridges rather than continue the fires? I don't know. That's how I think. And it's a difficult topic and a very difficult conversation to have. But if we don't change this situation, it doesn't matter who's in office. We're going to kill each other.
Part of it, I think, to me is, I mean, all the platforms that give voice to these fear-mongering people, like, I mean, I hate to say this, deplatforming some of them totally works, because then they end up speaking to a smaller and smaller echo chamber. The problem is, like, if the heat is turned down, if you don't have people spreading this stuff as much, or the places that turn the dials, like, learn how to deal with it, I do think that takes away the worst of it, because I've seen that happen with some people who end up leaving the conversation. They try really hard to get people to go with them somewhere else, and then of course no one goes. And then they just find something else to be mad about. Like, and they just kind of go away. I honestly don't know how to build bridges with people like that. I mean, and I say this as an atheist as much as I do like a progressive liberal type of person, but like, I don't know, maybe you guys, Jake, Dark Matter, like the ones who have been doing the religion stuff on YouTube for a long time, there is a difference between trying to reach people who might have doubts, and by exposing some of the problems with the religion, you are helping bring that to light, and they see that and they've never thought of it that way, and that helps them with their thinking, versus someone who has thought about it and is totally set in their ways. And Chris, I'd love to know if this makes sense to you as a former Scientologist. Like, when you were set in your ways and you're already there, they already kind of know how to deal with, they don't want anything to do with you. They don't want to listen to you. Nothing gets through to them. I know when I make stuff, and I don't have that experience that the other guys do, like, I'm just not speaking to that crowd. I am trying to speak to the ones who might be in the middle, even if you're a believer, and maybe something will at least stick in the back of your head and you'll think about it. And I think in terms of politics, like, there's no one on that side that I care to build bridges with. I don't think, that's why I get really mad when some of these Democrats are like, let's build a bipartisan. Like, no. Stop trying to work with people who are trying to sabotage the place.
Yeah.
Figure out if there's anybody who's actually willing to work. Then by all means, let's figure that out. But we are not talking about those people. Those people, at least today's modern Republican Party, they're not there in the most powerful places. I don't know why we would try to compromise with like Ted Cruz or someone like that. He's unreasonable. Maybe there's a centrist person to talk to, but they're few and far between.
Well, the problem with that concept is that the entire grease that turns the wheels of our government is compromised. And the only time in our history, as Ken Burns pointed out, that actually spectacularly failed and could not be accomplished, we had
Civil War. Yeah.
So I don't want that outcome. And I believe in my values, and I believe that they are good values, but I am willing to compromise with people so that we don't have that.
I guess the question for me then is, on what issues are you wanting to compromise on?
Right.
Because I'm not sure what those would be, and I'm not sure like who gets thrown under the bus. Because I don't think my side, my tribe, I don't think we are asking for anything that's unreasonable, that shoves other people, like that makes other people suffer. When I'm saying like, let's make sure people can vote. What's the compromise? No, let's not let some people vote. I know that's not what you're saying, but that's like, to me, that's what I'm hearing. It's
that's what would have to come to the table with. Like, if you're like, we want to end voter suppression and make sure that make November a voting month, right, or something like that. Like, we want to expand everyone to have as much freedom to do whatever voting they need to do for as long as they need, because people are poor and can't always take the Tuesday off. Like,
we can't compromise.
What's the compromise to that? There
isn't. Climate change. There's no compromise because we're already too late. Of civil rights. I'm
willing. The way this works, guys.
Yeah, it's more like funding for X.
Yeah, you don't say I'm not gonna have my voter Tuesday. You say, what do I need to give you so I have my voter Tuesday? You know what I mean? It's.
But I think the thing I don't get there is I don't think they want anything. I don't think they're actually coming to the table with their positions, which happen to be on the right. Because then you're right. Maybe there's a way to finagle that and compromise there. I think they are coming with the premise that like, nope, just here to make sure you're mad, like Jake was saying. Like, that is my goal. My goal is to get in your way, not to actually accomplish. They don't want to accomplish anything. Like, they want to set fire to the place. I don't know what their platform is. Hi, how are you?
It's not too late for climate change, just so you know. There's putting that out there. The climate scientist. So
okay, like, but I mean, like, what's the alternative? To say like, let's do nothing for another 10 years or something, and then maybe we'll slowly, like, you know what I'm saying there? Like, we have to take action at some point. But I mean, I don't know what issues we want to compromise on, and I don't know what they're bringing to the table to say, here's where we're at. Like, let's keep minimum wage at like $1 for, or, you know what I mean? Like, very low for whatever, and 15. Like, if conservatives said, let's raise it to 8 and Democrats were at 15, okay, maybe we can debate that and compromise there, but that's not what's happening here.
Right. Well, most of the platform has to do with pro-business legislation, tax cuts, economic measures, money measures, stuff like that. And this is stuff that these people are intensely interested in. And there is a lot of room there and a lot of wiggle room to get things done and get deals made. And that's how Washington is supposed to work. And I'm just going to keep stressing that, because we can either push that, or we can keep pushing a divisive message that they're a bunch of scumbag, evil, horrible, awful Nazis. And if we keep doing that, we will keep having the situation we have. And so as content creators, I am just putting it out there that, our positioning and the way we, conduct ourselves, the way we talk about what we should do in the future, I think it matters. And I think if we push a more...
Can I add one thought to that, which is I wish you were right, because I think you are right, and I want you to be right.
Yeah.
But if I can add one thought to that, which is I hear them calling our side, my side, progressive side, like, I hear the scumbag talk. And I know we don't want to play that game with them, but I feel like what we do is we quote them accurately. We tell people what their positions are, and just kind of hold a mirror up to the things they do, like the Supreme Court thing. Let's just play the clips from what they said in 2016 about Merrick Garland. Whereas when they are trying to use like Democrats' positions, they wildly distort what someone says to use against them. It's not a fair fight here. So like,
no,
what you're talking about, like you said, is how it's supposed to work.
It goes left to right also, though.
I disagree completely on that.
I have a question posed from my friend Santi in the chat. What do you think, because Australia has compulsory voting. Everybody has to vote. If you don't vote, you get fined. Yep. Do you think that is something that A, we should do, and B, would help?
That'll never fly in America. We're too much about freedom.
Yeah, no. That's not the solution. Popular marketing is the way to do it.
Yeah,
can't
we
get them
can't
to wear
get people to
masks.
wear masks. Yeah, they're not wearing
Yeah.
masks in the
But
pandemic. They're not going to
this
vote.
this kind of goes back to like the question last time was like sort of like how do you talk to these people and how do you bridge the gap, politically speaking, and not from an atheist Christian point of view, just from a left right point of view. The way I have very successfully in my chat and just in experiences in general, I have a lot of people in my fan base that have been brought over by re-examining the way we talk about something like universal healthcare, for instance, where it's not about this like redistribution of wealth. We're not stop talking about ethics. We Chris wants to hand an olive branch over, and that's fantastic. But right wingers don't care about ethics usually. They might, unless it's like a very specific kind of ethics. They don't necessarily care in the way that we care, like as humanists, whereas like we want to reduce suffering. It's more of this sort of like I got mine ethics where my family's safe, and that's fine. I understand that. But when we want everybody collectively in the country to be safe, we can't make that argument. The correct argument, in my opinion, and this is what's been working, is take it from the other side. Universal healthcare is objectively a more liberative state than having you have to have money to get insurance, and then within that insurance you have a network, and within that network you have doctors that are in or out of that network at certain specific hospitals. I have more liberty if I can go to any hospital anywhere, any doctor, and be covered than I do under this current way. It's and the money, obviously it's cheaper, so you just talk to someone that's very hardcore capitalist, which tends to be on the right, like hardcore unfettered capitalism, which has its place in every once in a while. Markets are good for now. This is how you got to talk to them. We have to make sure that you understand that liberty is, when that's a thing that they love and that I think everybody really likes, is your life is better under kind of left-leaning policies. Do you have more liberty if you have the ability to vote all month, or do you have more liberty when you can only vote once a day and you might not get the day off? It's not a national holiday. Do you have more liberty when you have demilitarized police that don't pull you over and that maybe you know what I mean? Like, I'm willing to, like, I don't want to ban guns or anything, but do you have more or less liberty if you have a less militarized populace, right? I feel like you have more liberty when you don't have people with automatic weapons, but you can still have your revolvers, your shotguns, your bolt action rifle, stuff like that. Like, we can win that argument based on purely nothing more than like what makes us freer, and using their sort of their idea of freedom, not necessarily against them, because it's not I'm not lying. It's not like, ooh, I snuck in my lefty policies. It's really just like making them understand that they are well, they're not conscious about like class issues or anything like that, but making them conscious of like the effects of those class issues without ever bringing class up, without bringing up ethics, without bringing up economics necessarily, just bringing up how it affects you specifically today on an individual basis. And that argument works a lot with a lot of different people.
Mm-hmm. You're talking about reframing and framing. And
100%. Branding is so bad on the left.
That's right. That's exactly right.
I agree with that. Yeah.
And this is where the framing of the argument comes into play, because the thing I have found in talking to a lot of people over the years with this is that they continually say, both on the left and right, I don't understand why this person thinks blah. I don't understand. Why are they trying to kill us? Right? And then you go actually talk to the people on the other side, and that's not where their head's at all. They've got a whole different value set. And if you'd understand that value set, you'd understand how they think about that. That's why you never understand them.
I think that typically applies until you get into LGBT issues.
Yeah, and so if I'm coming across like I'm talking about olive branches, I'm really just talking about just some basic communication so we can understand each other. I'm not talking about, hey, let's all kumbaya.
But what I don't get, like, name a Republican that's susceptible to that in, like, the Senate right now. I don't know which Republicans are like, if you only phrased it this way, maybe
I'm talking about voters, I guess.
Talking to senators.
Yeah. Say that again.
We're not talking to senators.
Right. Talking to each other, you mean?
I'm talking to voters.
I'm talking about people. I'm talking about how the content we put out. Because we're judged by our content, and our side is judged by our content. So it does matter. More to the point, though, if you can use the right words, you know, people can be amazingly push button in a number of ways. This marketing stuff is pretty powerful.
I believe that.
In terms of ethics, what we're looking at now, or speaking of ethics, I should say, looking at now facing this Supreme Court issue, what do we have to worry about if this happens? Like, I mean, I know we have the Roe v. Wade issue. Do you guys worry about them deciding to make gay marriage legal again too? What do you think that we have to face on the line as if we have a supermajority of the GOP?
The civil rights stuff has been actually RBG was not the split vote. That actually is a +1 there. So even with another conservative judge, you still are 5.
Depending on the case, but like
right. But I mean, like in the last one, it was just I looked.
Neil Gorsuch was like the vote on that one. For trans
and actually,
rights.
What's his name? The one that Bush put in place. I forget his name.
Alito Roberts.
Roberts, thank you. Roberts has actually been better than I thought he would be when he got put in place. Not as scary, but the Roe v. Wade thing is the one that I think is hard. It's hard to overturn. You have to have a very specific case.
But they'll find that case. They will get a case that will basically end abortion rights in any state that has a Republican legislature. So like whatever, half the states in the country will make it all but impossible for poor women to be able to access healthcare, to access abortion if they want it. That's done. That's going to happen unless there's some legislative override. The weird thing is for atheist issues, like hardcore church-state separation issues, we were already on the losing side of that. And I'm just thinking there was a case that involved a couple of years ago, like a giant Christian cross on public property. Atheists lost that case like 7-2. Mm-hmm. And granted, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was in the 2, so we lost the 1. But that's not going to change. We were already losing those cases. But you're right. It's the abortion stuff that's a big deal. If there is a question about, can Christians discriminate against gay customers who want to buy the exact same thing as straight customers from a store, that's an easy flip. Like that could change too. So basically, they will undo any civil rights protections that have been nationwide. Those will quickly go away. Like it's going to happen. That's their entire point. That's why Christians have supported Trump. They're getting their way on this. The only solution is either a legislative fix, which could be overturned by the court somehow, or expanding the courts. Like there is no way around that. And the thing that I'm worried about is that Democrats, the ones that live in blue states, aren't going to be as worried about that as they should be because it won't affect them. I live in Illinois, and not that I need an abortion or anything, but I could access it if I needed it, or people I know could access it if they needed it. That's not an issue in my state. But if you live in a deeply red state, where are you going to go? Because those last remaining abortion clinics are going to be gone. There will be no access unless you could fly out somewhere, drive somewhere far, find the money to do that. That's what's going to go away.
They actually want to make that illegal too. That if you cross states, there are already quite a few states in this country right now that it is damn near impossible to get an abortion.
I think Mississippi is down to 1, maybe Arkansas is down to 1 or 2. Yeah, you're right.
Ohio is close, and they some of these states are making it so not only can you get arrested for crossing the state line, but the doctor that performed it can get arrested for and that is insane. Now, John, you had written this tweet the other day. It said that bodily autonomy, female bodily autonomy, is more than just an abortion issue. Do you think that goes along with this problem with this change of the Supreme Court?
I don't know enough about it in order to say that. I've heard that Ruth Bader Ginsburg played a big role in affecting women's rights in regard to not needing her husband's permission to do certain things, in the case you're talking about, was this woman wanted to donate her eggs for another couple to conceive, and she needed her husband's permission. Her husband, she was divorced from, and she wasn't allowed to do it without his permission. which is ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I just think that the Roe v. Wade thing is a slippery slope. When you said that, that made me think I didn't even think about that. Yeah, they could take away our right to do that, which I live in fucking Georgia. It's damn near impossible to do it here now. But what I fear what the next step will be for women if we are here losing this. And of course, it's really horrible that it's mostly old white men that are making these decisions. But regardless, it's the slippery slope that what is next, not only in terms of women's rights, but social issues and LGBTQ rights, everything. I am so scared that what the woman, I can't remember her name, the woman that he wants to appoint, actually said more than once, and I was talking to a godless engineer about this last night, that she will put God's law over American law, if she feels that's what's necessary. And that should never be the case. Never.
And that's a fair question to ask her in a confirmation hearing, and Republicans are already saying any questions about her religion are inherently anti-Catholic. So that is an issue. I wonder how she'll find a way. She's smart enough to know how to answer those questions, so you're not just saying, I'm going to put God's law above. No. She won't. She'll say, I'm guided by my faith, but I follow the whatever. There's a way to do that. But you're right. Like things that are on the margins, things about kids who are transgender, who they're going to make no, you need your parents' permission to do anything, which obviously doesn't help. If you're a young woman, I mean, she's already voted. She spent 3 years on an appellate court. There was a case involving a underage girl who needed an abortion and didn't want her parents' permission. And the judge said, yes, you're mature enough to make that decision yourself. She voted against that girl allowed to have that procedure. She's already done this stuff. It is scary stuff. That's why I don't want her on the court. It has nothing to do with her faith. Sotomayor is Catholic. Who cares? It doesn't matter.
If she's confirmed, that'll make 6 out of 9 of them Catholic. So this whole, we just don't like her.
And it's not the Catholic thing that's a problem. It's the way they do the law. But yeah, it is a problem that you have 6 conservative justices on the court, and all of a sudden it means all of those, the Gorsuch, the Roberts, who occasionally flip when it's helpful, when it's always a nice surprise when they flip. They can all do that, but it won't matter because they'll still be in the minority because you have the other ones who are willing not to do that. If she's on the court, I wonder who's the new median justice, because it used to be John Roberts is somehow the guy in the middle, and that's scary because he's super conservative, and now he's one of the more liberal ones. It's gonna be that is frightening.
Gorsuch would be kind of the middle, wouldn't he?
Jesus, yeah, probably. And again, he's made a couple of decisions that were great. I'm glad he was on that side of certain issues, but by and large, he's not. So it's scary. If Democrats win back the presidency and Congress, which is a big if based on the past, it would be idiotic of them not to go full force and fix the judiciary too. Expand the court, make a bunch of seats available on lower courts. There's a ton of different ways to do that so that it's fair on the surface. Because again, the Supreme Court is overworked. All those lower courts are overworked. They can't hear cases. It takes years for some of these cases to get through the system. There's no reason the Supreme Court has to have 9 people. It could have 30 or 31, whatever you want. It could do it. It would make a lot of sense. You could hear more cases that way too. It would be stupid for them not to do it if they have the power to do it. I mean, they won't. They should.
I have a question from the chat from someone named D-Dog. They ask, would it be better to reframe things from a Christian left viewpoint for practicality? And Jesus did warn to watch out for false prophets after all.
I think that's actually a really powerful thing. It's one thing to hear from all of us who are atheists about a lot of these issues, but there is a good, I am all for progressive Christians, speaking out. And there are a bunch of them doing it, more power to them. I think there's a group that just launched today, Humanists for Joe Biden, but one of the shout outs it got was from the Latter-day Saints for Joe Biden. Like, good. We disagree on a lot of stuff, but we agree on these issues that Trump is bad. We need to get Joe Biden in office. Like, you know what? Fine. Speak in the language of faith. And yes, appeal to Jesus. Jesus said what Trump is doing is wrong. Let's help the poor. Let's help the refugees. And I honestly think it means more coming from them than us trying to point out, like, well, Jesus said this, you people don't know. Like, but it does mean something when pastors and other Christians who there is no doubt about their religious allegiances, it means a lot when they speak out. And the more people who give them attention, the better off we all are.
Mm-hmm. We don't have a lot of very vocal left pastors and religious leaders, though. You know, why do you think that is?
Not well known. They do exist. There are a lot of them. Some of them do get attention. Some of them spoke at the Democratic National Convention. You're saying like the progressive pastors and stuff?
Yeah.
I mean, think about, was it Chris who said this? Like, who's getting the microphone at a lot of these things? If you're on the Fox News side, they're gonna give it to the most right-wing pastors out there. And they do. And for the most part, liberal media isn't really eager to have like the reverend, the liberal Catholic preacher on TV. I'm not saying that would be a bad thing. That might be a good idea, but they usually don't. They go for professors. They go for academics, things like that. But they do exist. Like William Barber is a preacher who, where is he? Virginia or North Carolina or something. But like, there are some who are very prominent and have led big movements of people. There are nuns who are getting people to the polls. They do get attention, just not as much because they don't have the amplification as people like Robert Jeffress or other pastors on the right.
That's exactly right.
Cornel West is a great example.
Yeah. Though I wonder if Cornel West is known more as an academic than as a religious leader. Yeah.
He brings up spirituality a lot, though.
Yeah. That's fair.
You brought up education and stuff. We talked about an imbalance of power earlier. What about the fact that we tend to have a more scientific viewpoint and a more critical thinking viewpoint on our side, is where they will land more biblically? So that dividing between us, do you think there's any way to find a middle ground so that we can agree on anything at all?
Between which two groups?
Left and right, but I'm saying in terms of how on the left we will we will read the data, we will listen to the scientists, we understand that that's important, where they, especially the evangelicals, but the right tends to be more anti-science and anti-critical thinking.
I haven't particularly actually found that to be true in my real life interactions with people who are right-leaning. Which is not the people who live in the bayou or in the evangelical world. Okay, so I'm not trying to say here's a blanket statement for everybody on that side. What I'm saying is my own personal experience has found it to be a little bit different, and I think that we are biased a bit by the fact that most of the people who appear on social media are there with an agenda, and they are not interested in changing their mind at all, and so they come off very extreme. And so we tend to see that reflected, and then we go, oh, these guys are all like that. There's a ton of people who follow my channel who are right-wing and who are critical thinkers and who do appreciate science.
Oh, I didn't mean the populace itself. I meant the people in power, because they're the ones, they're the ones that are denying climate change and that kind of thing.
These guys are just feeding their base.
Okay.
Right. I think you have a better chance of reaching. I'm sorry, Chris. I don't know if I'm talking over you. I couldn't hear you there.
No.
I think you do have a better chance of finding those like more moderate Republicans, more people willing to debate, discuss this stuff, even if they don't agree with you on all these things. It's more likely you'll find them at the state level, certainly at city councils. Like I've tried to find, I told you there was like more than 100 candidates running on the ballot, state level or higher. They're all Democrats. And it's not because I'm like not looking for Republicans. They're not there, who are openly non-religious. I think by my count, there is like, at the moment, 2 city council members who are openly Republican and openly atheist at the same time. And I talked to both of them, and they're both very much like, they're Republican for reasons that have nothing to do with Trump. They're not Trump fans. They're conservative on fiscal issues, things like that. But they will also say that when they are on city council, what are the discussions they're having? It's about the roads. It's about local businesses. Those are ones where you can find a compromise on. That's where you can like have these discussions that don't get heated, even if you may agree on one side or the other. So there is a place where you can find people with different political leanings who can come to common ground. But when you get to Congress, when you get to a state legislature where you're dealing with culture war issues and stuff that, to me, seems like things that you can't compromise on, I think there it's a lot harder to find to avoid, like Chris said, feeding your base. You feel like you have to do that, but the lower you get, it becomes more possible to do all of that. And then, you know, when you are trying to get votes at a higher level and you need them, you play to the base.
That's right. And a lot of people seem to, I certainly forget, let me put it that way instead of projecting. You see, these guys are state senators. Mitch McConnell is Kentucky, right?
Right.
I don't live in Kentucky. Mitch McConnell doesn't give a fuck what I think because I'm not going to influence his life in any way politically, you know? So half the country can hate these guys and they can perfectly afford to not care.
Right.
As long as their state is backing them up. And even then, as long as the part of the state that matters, the voting bloc, the people who go out and vote, as long as the majority of those guys are giving you the thumbs up, you're golden. And when you're on stage or when you're behind a microphone at that level, at the federal level especially, probably more so than the state level, you're an actor when you're on screen or you're on stage. You are saying lines that have been figured out based on polling data and surveys and focus groups and all that stuff. You're not up there speaking your mind. You're up there saying things that you've already worked out the messaging and you're just sticking with it. You're running a propaganda campaign. That's what those guys are doing.
There's an interesting question from the chat from Pine Steak. They ask, if the Dems hold both houses in the presidency, should they push through a bill which protects women's rights, such as abortion, while they can? And I want to add to that, is there anything that we can do to protect ourselves from evangelicals taking over and pushing religion into government as well? So, Jake?
Exposing it.
Yeah, exposing it helps, except I mean some people don't give a shit. But yeah, I mean there's lots of ways to legislate. It's just never perfectly safe, right? Because that's how our system is where you can always mold it. You could, I mean, with great effort, you could cause an amendment to come up that would broadly help everyone's bodily autonomy, regardless of gender, that would also apply to Roe v. Wade and stuff like that. I'm sure you could.
You could also pass like a Medicare for all sort of public option plan that covers any sort of procedure like that. So to the question, like, should they pass a bill that protects women's rights, such as abortion?
I think
they probably couldn't as a standalone bill.
It's more universal. Yeah. It'd be more of a broad spectrum thing. That's the type of law that ends up in, like, actually written down and put into the Constitution. It's like, no person, regardless of this, and this, will be denied X. Like, basically, that's how those work. So, it'd have to be pretty broad. And again, you'd have to have a lot of political power to put an amendment in. But it's not unheard of, especially a lame duck Trump coming off of a bad loss where we won the primary. I say we. I'm a registered independent, but lefty. We won the primaries, and we won the we win this next election. Arguably, you win the next primary too. I mean, that's enough political power to get a lot of really good things done that help people across the board. And it's kind of funny. I don't feel like when you're a conservative and stuff, like, I understand that stuff like trans people could probably scare a lot of people. Like when you're hyper conservative, like, oh, it's a dude in a dress or something. And it's like, oh, this is not it, and you're wrong about this. You can till you're blue in the face, and I do often argue with these people about stuff like that. But really, what it comes down to is they don't have to interact with anyone that they don't agree with necessarily. They're going to have access to healthcare. They're going to have access to education. They're going to have access to, hopefully we can get to the point where we have access to, like, we eliminate homelessness. We can easily do that. Jeff Bezos could snap his fingers and have that done today and have $200 billion left over. I know he's not all liquid, but still he could do that. And if he can do that, the country damn sure can do that. Where you just have housing, probably broad access to food and water, broad access to internet. If you just do that, the American experience is bolstered. And even under capitalism, which I'm not a huge fan of, but I'm not a socialist. I'm more of a market socialist, I guess. Even under just American capitalism with regulation, you thrive because you have a populace that's healthy, so they're not taking days off. You have a populace that's educated, so that they're more efficient. You have a populace that is happier, and because they have all of these things, including a wage increase or whatever, more money is circulating, which is what you need in capitalism. You can't have it stagnate at the top like it does, or it doesn't work very well for everybody else, as we know. And when you have money circulating, everybody's healthy, everybody's good to go. And these basic things, 10 years that no conservative is going to be against any of those programs. What are they going to be against? They're going to, not only are they going to personally save money, they're going to have better quality of life in general. So really,
if it passes,
of course,
Republicans would then be taking away your health care, and people will be like, "Don't take away my health care. I hate the government."
Yes.
Right. And if it was framed in such a way that they could accept it, the problem is that Fox News works full time to counter propagandize these things, and it's
paid a lot by pharmaceutical companies to run ads.
Yeah, I know, it's really, really wild. It's really wild. So the estimation of effort on that is quite high, but
it is. But 69% of people, regardless of political affiliation, approve of Medicare for all. So,
right, and 60% of adults, apparently, per 538 here, believe abortion should be illegal first trimester. 90% of those who are pro-choice, of course, believe that, and but even 33% of people who are pro-life believe it should be legal.
Yeah.
Even a third of the pro-life crowd believes that first trimester abortion should be legal.
I know a lot of pro-life people that are like, I'm personally pro-life, but I can't extend that to somebody else.
Yeah. Well,
if they banned abortion or they found a way to block abortion, the people who would be preachers' kids would find a way to get them.
Yeah, exactly. All I'm bringing this up for is because if we think right now that we're seeing protests,
it's going to get worse.
You try overturning Roe v. Wade,
and
you watch half of America burn. I mean, this is not a good political move. They do not have the will of the people behind this, and they know it. So I'm wondering how eager so many people in government are going to be to try to make this Roe v. Wade challenge happen. I think a lot of people in D.C. are like, I don't want to go anywhere near that. That's not the hill I'm dying on.
I'll agree with you on one point there, which is conservatives like abortion in the sense that they like arguing against it, but they don't want it to end because then they don't have a boogeyman anymore. They got to find something else to chase.
Also, importantly,
the evangelicals love Trump merely because he is pro-life. And in fact, this administration has more evangelicals in the cabinet than any other presidential cabinet in history. It's Sessions and DeVos and all of them. In fact, the law that he passed way back when he got rid of trans people in the military was something that he has this evangelical group. I can't remember that crazy lady that talks about Satan and stuff. She's one of them.
That pastor, the White House
Paula White
advisor.
Yeah, Paula White. Her and there's another guy that are two heads of it. But they, in that picture that you see of all those people like praying over him, that's this evangelical group that I can't remember what it was called, but
it's just an advisory council. His presidential
he specifically brought them in. So,
but that's all the branch.
Is there? Yeah, it is.
It's a cabinet.
Two areas are like more numerous, and they're going to be like whoa,
Well, you'd hope so. Also, statistically speaking, when you have broad access to abortion, numbers go down. When you limit abortion, more abortions happen.
Right.
And not only that, obviously, more deaths of the parent dies. So, like, I mean, yeah, and if you have, and again, yeah, a lot of it has to do with contraception and sexual education. Like, I mean, you think to your sexual education, you learn nothing. So, we're learning on the fly in America pretty much all the time, and that's not super ideal. So, yeah, broad spectrum sexual education reform would be super ideal. Even from, again, an economic perspective.
If somebody got smart about this at certain levels of government or at certain positions, if some people with money and power and the ability to do this got smart about this, they could ramp up a PR campaign that would hit multiple buttons across multiple states, which would put, if the religious right really did a full-on offensive against Roe v. Wade, they were ready for them, had videos produced, talked about how kids were going to die, how there was going to be more illegal abortions, backdoor stuff, which would absolutely be a factual consequence of overturning Roe v. Wade. I mean, there's a number of things you could scare the hell out of the Republicans with.
Sure.
They love being scared.
A great argument against that is like just prohibition of anything. Prohibition of alcohol, it proliferated it. It made it even, it pervaded the culture because they prohibited it. The drug war is a great example of a thing that doesn't work. We have ridiculous incarceration rates, which again is a liberty argument. Are we the most libertist country in the world? Do we have the most incarcerations? No, of course not. Are we more or less free if you can do drugs when you want to your own body? Yes, we are more libertist. I'm not saying we should necessarily be injecting 18-year-olds with meth. However, we could probably find a middle ground. Heroin hotels are a fantastic idea that they do in Europe, where someone has access to what we would consider very hardcore drugs, with the focus of weaning people off of these very highly addictive things, like heroin is a great example, because an opiate so hardcore. And opiates obviously are running rampant in the country that are prohibited broadly for this kind of use, but they're prescribed at such high rates. It's a big problem. So I mean, like, all of these values, again, they tie up in very easy things. They tie up in liberty very well in a nice little bow. You could run an entire campaign on freedom as a left-leaning person and win a lot of people off of the center right.
That's right. That's exactly right. And it's just, we just need these guys to get good at it, because right now they suck.
Yeah,
the guys on the left, they suck at this. And
I can be president in 2024 if you guys are interested. So,
going back to the when I read this thing about how this, there are more evangelicals on this cabinet than any other before. Is there any way to possibly protect ourselves against this? Would it be wrong to make some sort of legislation that, does not allow for, specifically religious groups to have this amount of say? John, what do you think?
No, they can't do that. No religious tests.
Yeah.
So no, we wouldn't be able to do that. The First Amendment, at least it protects. It ideally should protect us as much as it does them.
Right.
And a drive to respect it more would work wonders. But the will, isn't there. What I was going to say about the abortion issue, though, is that I actually, a lot of right-leaning people and a lot of Christians get abortions. A significant percentage of them do, and I wonder if the will is there for them to mess with that too. Like, of course, vocally they're going to be against it, but what really matters is what happens behind closed doors, what happens in the voting booth. And I think there's some fear for them there too, because, a lot of people don't realize it, but a significant percentage of them get abortions. More so, technically more of them get abortions than people who don't identify with any religion, but there's more of them in the population. So that's a factor, but technically more of them do get abortions.
That's right.
Can I jump in on the?
Has to do with just the fact that people are not educated well enough in this country, especially in the South. We do not have. My son is 16. He does not have proper sex education whatsoever, and teaching abstinence as sex education is fucking bullshit. And that's how you end up with 14-year-olds that are pregnant.
Right.
But I see the abortion thing. I call it a keystone issue for the religious, mostly for the Christians, because a lot of them, it's just a matter of agreeing with what they believe that God wants. So regardless of, and people say that they're pro-life, or they're pro-birth, not actually pro-life, because these are the same people that don't want to feed, or that are okay with these kids in cages or feed homeless children or anything like that. They don't care once they're born. They're against abortion because they think that is what the Bible wants, even though, Bible, abortion, Bible, it doesn't matter. So they can lay their head down at night and say, well, I sided with God, regardless of what happens to anybody. And that is really sad if you think about it, that they don't actually care about any of the issues. They just want to be able to say, yes, I'm pro-life because I'm Christian. And therefore, when you have anybody that, like Trump, say, I'm pro-life, they're going to vote for him regardless of how he acts or any of his other policies whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
So.
What did Hemant want to say earlier?
I was going to say, you were bringing up the question of like evangelicals in the White House influencing decisions. And just to add to what John was saying earlier, the issue for me is not that they're in there, that there are evangelicals who are in places of power. That to me is not an issue. It's what they're doing with it. I mean, even if Biden wins the election, the person running the National Institutes of Health, Francis Collins, who is an evangelical Christian, I mean, as someone who has followed that guy's career for many, many years, if not like a decade or longer, he's really good at his job. Like, I don't hear people complaining about him doing a good job, even though he is very open about his evangelical Christianity. I'm not bothered by him in there. I don't know the religious beliefs of everyone who Barack Obama had in the cabinet either. But
just to clarify, though, I wasn't saying I don't want evangelicals in power. It's the fact that he has an actual group that influences him, and it's specifically that they are religious and influencing the highest person in the land for it.
Obama had a faith-based advisory council that, in theory, sounds just like that. The difference is it's not just one religion; it's a bunch of people. And they're not changing policy. They're not influencing policy. Whereas these evangelicals surrounding Trump are really there, not just selfish reasons for access and photo ops and stuff like that. They do get him to do things that have consequences in the long run. That to me, but like we were saying earlier, you can't not allow that to happen. But it's more like you got to elect people that wouldn't allow that to happen.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
It's hard to ensure that you have experts in the cabinets, which I don't know how that you could even necessarily legislate that, because what constitutes an expert. So it would be ideal if like the Secretary of the Interior or something had a relevant PhD sociology or something. I don't know. Like it would make a lot of sense, but no. I mean, you have people like Betsy DeVos in charge of education, who is the worst possible person to do that. It doesn't make any sense.
It would probably make some degree of sense to curb some of the more general powers that the president has, because the president's got very broad powers in the Constitution when it comes to forming up his own cabinet based on the people he wants there to advise him. And I don't know that it would be such a bad idea to maybe put some qualifications there in terms of, qualifications of the people involved. But you can really only go so far with that, because at the end of the day, you want the president to have the freedom to choose and pick whoever the hell he wants to. You voted for him, you trust him to do the job that he's supposed to do. And there's always going to be people who are going to run against that. I'm sure there were people who had nefarious things to say about Obama's religious advisory board, during those 8 years. I'm sure we could look that up.
Yeah.
So, you know,
As far as
you don't want to do too much there.
regarding presidential powers, Barack did not do a great job in preventing the expansion of those either. So,
Well, Trump also thinks that he can sign an executive order and do whatever the fuck he wants to, too. So.
he's worse. He is worse. Yes.
Born in earlier presidencies, unfortunately, the power of the executive order is a bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
They all get struck down. I mean, you've seen what happens when they actually hit the courts. It's all just so much stuff and nonsense and noise, really. You know, because if it's not constitutional or if it's illegal, it's not going to hold up. And so far, that's been the case, almost one for one with his stuff.
Well, we've been going for about an hour and 40 minutes, so we can wrap it up. If anybody we just have any closing thoughts, we'll start with you, Hemant. Vote. Okay.
And that's it. Out.
Awesome. Jake?
Yeah, definitely vote. And for those of you who haven't voted for before, it's not just for the president. There's a bunch of stuff down ticket in your local community. You're going to be talking about millage for your schools. You're going to be talking about funding for animal shelters. You're going to be talking about public parks. You're going to be talking about probably weed in your city or state. So, and you want that. Trust me, I've got it. It's pretty okay. It's again, it's a freedom thing, man. And make sure that like you're I mean, you're talking about school boards, you're talking about people in your state legislature. So, I mean, if you don't like X, like I'm assuming you probably don't like the Republicans if you're watching this, but if you don't like Democrats, you should make sure that you go and vote against people that you think aren't in your best interest. Like and do the research. Like John said, I get my pre-ballot and I look at them and I Google them and I go to their pages, and it doesn't take long. It takes maybe 30 minutes. You can listen to music while you're doing it, and it's not that, because their policies, you know pretty quickly who you're going to vote for and who you aren't going to vote for when they say I hate Mexicans. You're like, well, probably not you, buddy. So like it's pretty simple, and you want to make sure that you are you don't have to know these people's biographies, but know roughly what's going on. And plus, within the Democratic Party, if you are a progressive, there are the Justice Democrats as well that caucus with the Democrats and are under the Democratic Party that tend to be less of the old style Democrat and more of the more progressive, I think AOC type people. She's a Justice Dem. So if that's more your speed too, they're also blue. Then there's some Green Party stuff. There's libertarian people. If you're, if you vote for a libertarian judge, if you happen to find a libertarian judge, that's probably ideal. Fewer people will go to jail because libertarians don't like government. So it's probably a good thing to make sure that you're a little informed. So yeah, go do the vote.
Awesome, definitely. And also, just adding to that, it's really important to not just vote at the top level. Go out and vote, for city council and stuff like that. That shit is important too.
Go to your primaries and go to your midterms.
Yes, everything. Don't just vote once every 4 years. That's stupid. Chris, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, don't vote only once every 4 years. That's stupid. Okay. Now, that's a good message because it's true.
That's how Republicans take power.
Yeah,
complacent
old people like to vote.
Yes. The fact of the matter is that most federal level politics are we're about as influential on them, and they have about as much to do with us on a daily basis as a soap opera. I mean, that's how it's kind of presented. Local politics, though, I'm really glad this has come up here, because that is where that's the stuff that's going to affect your neighborhood, your city, your county. And so, yes, please get involved in that. I've been all over that ever since I got out of my cult bubble world, and it's been it's a little empowering, and it's correct. It should be, because that's how we can decide things,
All right.
And also watch out for propaganda.
Yeah.
Right. Like, educate yourself on it. If you guys haven't seen Social Dilemma, oh man.
Yeah, I've been told that
you gotta understand what this thing is doing to you, and how it's influencing your voting process and your opinions about things. So please take some time to find out about that. It's a valid and very, very important part of critical thinking, to understand how you're receiving your information and what you're doing with it.
And my friend One Ring 42, he has a channel if you want to check him out. His line is indoctrinate or propaganda. It's a hell of a drug, and it's true. it is really screwing things up for a lot of this country right now, especially with stuff like Fox News and whatnot. So it's
a great way to identify propaganda is if it appeals to your emotion. If it's appealing to your emotion, it's immediately probably propaganda. So just make sure, and like that happens on all sides, obviously.
Yeah.
But then if you click on whatever that is and then read into it, and they start giving you real statistics, if they start giving you real stuff, it was probably more clickbait than it was propaganda at this point. And now we're getting into the gray areas of what propaganda is. But like, for instance, like Donald Trump saying MS-13 is bad, and he won't give any statistics, that's propaganda. If you say this is the number of people killed by MS-13, that's not. This is ideal, and so this is the stuff you want to process. By the way, MS-13 not that big a deal really in America. It's really big a deal in Mexico though.
Yeah, but they're not coming in hordes over the border or anything like that. He's full of shit when he says that.
Yes,
so, definitely educate yourself. That is super important.
Just as another little point on that, just to follow up with what he was saying, a really good source for polling data is 538.com. Yeah. The most accurate ones I've found.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And then last but not least, I would not have this show if it weren't for him. Not only this topic, but he gave me the idea for Secular Sunday Service. So John, can you have anything else to add?
Thank you. Well, everybody's already said all the good stuff and all the stuff that I was going to say precisely in the words they used. So I kind of resent that. But yeah, what I was going to say was that the big deal is with the propaganda is I was going to mention that things are going to get, everything's going to be moving so fast and extremely heated. And I think that it gets distorted online. The nature of our just nature as human beings is that we're going to be attracted to bad news. You know, that's what's going to attract people basically, because it's a survival mechanism. And so there's viability in that as far as a strategy, is to inundate people with bad news, and that's a viable strategy for everybody involved, for the politicians, for the media, because it gets them clicks, and the politicians are going to be fear-mongering left and right. I think it's especially effective on the right, though, because of that religious component, because I think that that's very conducive to fear-mongering. The religion, the Christianity, it's kind of at least the fundamentalist aspects of it, the evangelical aspects of it, is kind of rooted in fear. And I think that all meshes very well. So it's a lot to work against, and psychologically it's a lot to work against, and it can be exhausting, and it can be a big help to take a break from all that, once in a while, and get your bearings.
Yeah, step away. And in fact, Chris, I don't know how many times you've come to me and like, I'm done with the politics stuff right now. I can't listen. So I totally get that. But it's just going to get worse for at least the next couple of months. So awesome. But anyway, thank you guys so much for coming. This was a great chat. I really appreciate every single one of you, and you're all welcome back to my channel anytime. And thanks to everybody in the chat for coming and watching along. I guess we will see you next time. Remember, think critically. Night, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.
Thanks.